There are 4 big lies you're being told about the war in Iran. These lies are coming in faster than the news cycle can even process them. If you don't pause to think about each of them, you might be caught up in these lies as well. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. 1, this is a never-ending war, a quagmire. 2, Iran has strong leadership. Things are going amazing. 3, our oil prices are going to absolutely skyrocket. And 4, that President Trump has no plan. You are being lied to about the Trump administration's action against Iran. You're being lied to over and over and over again because liars, you mean the Democrats, the horseshoe right, obviously terrorists, are working together to make the United States lose. Well, today I'm going to take you through each of the 3 big lies that you are currently hearing. We're going to debunk them one at a time, and I'll explain why those lies are being put out there in the first place. These are the catastrophist lies about oil at $200 a barrel and the evils of American military intervention and about inevitable quagmire or inevitable defeat. These aren't just lies, they are insane lies. So let's start with lie number 1. This is a quagmire, an interminable, never-ending conflict doomed to catastrophe. We'll probably have to use nukes and all the rest. This is nuts. Can we be real about something for a second? We are 12 days into this war. 12 days. Not 12 years like Vietnam, not 12 months like the Spanish-American War, which ended with the United States winning Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines from Spain. 12 days. About how long it takes cottage cheese to spoil in your fridge. Okay, lie number 2. Iran is doing great. They're outlasting us. They've never been stronger. They'll be able to stand up to us forever. You see this in the AI slop all over X. People legitimately making up videos that do not exist and pumping them out, showing Iran with nuclear age weaponry. Iran, basically what the weaponry that the aliens used in Independence Day. Well, no, actually, the war is going incredibly poorly for Iran. Actually, Iran is on its last legs. I should say last leg, because it turns out that Mojtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader of Iran, reportedly is down to one leg. Apparently, the Israelis blew off the other one in that same strike that took out Mojtaba's dad. Well, at least Mojtaba still has a working dick. Well, sorry, strike that. His dick wasn't working even before he ended up in a reported coma. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that? Allegedly, Mojtaba isn't even conscious, which is why at a ceremony for Mojtaba, where the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps showed up so they could pledge allegiance to him, they used a cardboard cutout of him. I am not joking. Check it out. They're pledging allegiance, not to him, but to a picture of him, like a poster board that they printed at Iranian Kinko's. By the way, this is also how I run our office. I put up a cardboard cutout, and then my staffers talk to it, and we call it a successful meeting. But that's how Iran is currently doing its government, like right this very instant. Before I go any further, folks, I just want to remind you, you should become a subscriber over at DailyWire. We have tons of good stuff happening. You can interact with me every month, live Q&A with all access. Plus, we're going to start bringing you live interactions on the show itself. We have tons coming. Please become a member. It helps us bring you the news and commentary you want, and fight the fight. DailyWire.com/subscribe. Okay, so back to Mojtaba. How terrible a pick is Mojtaba? Well, according to the New York Post, Mojtaba's dad explicitly left a will saying, "Do not appoint this derelict impotent to replace me." Here is the Post, quote, "Assassinated Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was so opposed to his son taking power that he noted it in his will," experts told the Post. Quote, "In Khamenei's will, he explicitly asked Mojtaba not to be named as a successor," said Khosrow Isfahani, a research director for the opposition group National Union for Democracy with ties to Iranian intelligence. Well, then they appointed Mojtaba anyway. Well, I guess at least his mother loved him. Maybe. Still, the critics argue catastrophe is upon us, which brings us to lie number 3, which is that the oil shock is going to end this war. Iran's just going to cut off the Strait of Hormuz forever. You're going to be standing in line like the Jimmy Carter era, waiting to pump gas. Well, not exactly. You remember when, like yesterday morning, people were freaking out about the Strait of Hormuz and the supposed Iranian threat to global oil supply? And there was talk about the price of crude per barrel going up to $150, $200. Well, it was the fastest turnaround in probably modern market history because the price of oil soared by like $40 a barrel. And then by the close of business yesterday, crude had dropped again below $90 a barrel. So clearly we're in trouble. The economy's about to collapse. That's true if you listen to the idiots. You really thought These people really thought that President Trump was going to launch a major action in the Middle East without any idea it might upset the oil markets. I mean, if there's one thing President Trump understands, it is the impact on markets. This is literally why he launches strikes on Friday nights, not just to annoy me because it's Sabbath and I can't cover it, but actually because the markets don't open until, wait for it, Monday. Noticing a pattern? He did it with Maduro. He did it here. And that is for a reason. I mean, come on. Yesterday, President Trump even announced that if Iran tries to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, he might turn it into the Strait of America to go alongside his monopoly card Gulf of America.
But when the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed. I hope it's not going to be needed, but if it's needed, we'll escort them right through.
The president also put up a statement over on Truth Social explaining his plans for the Strait of Hormuz. Quote, if Iran does anything that stops the flow of oil within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the United States of America 20 times harder than they have been hit so far. Additionally, we will take out easily destroyable targets that will make it virtually impossible for Iran to ever be built back as a nation again. Death, fire, and fury will rain upon them. I love when he starts just doing heavy metal lyrics. Death, fire, and fury is great. But I hope and pray, says the president, that it does not happen. This is a gift from the United States of America to China and all of those nations that heavily use the Hormuz Strait. You notice the veiled threat right there? It's pretty wonderful. It's basically Trump saying, hey, China, I know you're working with Iran, but we are going to keep the oil flowing to you for now if you're nice. He says, hopefully it is a gesture that will be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. Well, good. Why should we let Iran run the Strait of Hormuz? They can't even get Mojtaba's penis up, let alone oil production. President Trump is feeling it. Here he was yesterday.
Together with our Israeli partners, we're crushing the enemy in an overwhelming display of technical skill and military force. Iran's drone and missile capability is being utterly demolished. The Navy is gone. It's all lying at the bottom of the ocean. 46 ships. Can you believe it? In fact, I got a little upset with our people. I said, what quality of ship? Excellent, sir. Top of the line. I said, why did we just capture the ship? We could have used it. Why did we sink them? They said, it's more fun to sink them. I said, they like sinking them better.
I'm sorry. He's the best. He's just the best. I'm sorry. If you cannot laugh along with the president about the United States sinking Iranian Navy ships, I mean, you need to have a better time in life. Seriously. The president also spelled out a timeline. It will be short and it will be over soon. Here was the president yesterday at the Congressional Institute.
We took a little excursion because we felt we had to do that to get rid of some evil. And I think you'll see it's going to be a short-term excursion. How good is our military, right?
This short-term excursion. You know, like a pleasure cruise, basically. So then he was asked by a reporter about when it will be over. And he said, soon.
On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to...
soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
I swear, President Trump talks about this war to reporters the same way I talk to my kids about a trip to the doctors. It will be over soon. Maybe that's because Trump's opponents here are acting like, children. And let's be real about the way this war is being fought. It is completely different from the way that we even fought wars 20 years ago. As Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says, this is not 2003. Our tech is not 2003. We are not fighting wars like it's 2003.
You see, this is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama. It's not even close. Our generation of soldier will not let that happen again, and nor will this president, who very clearly ran against those kinds of never-ending, nebulously scoped missions. Those days are dead. Instead, we're winning decisively with brutal efficiency, total air dominance, and an unbreakable will to accomplish the president's objectives.
Is anyone surprised that this is going to be a short war? If so, why? When we entered into this action in Iran, President Trump said the entire thing would last 3 to 4 weeks, which is, by the way, 2 weeks shorter than the first Gulf War, the high watermark of successful short wars when he kicked Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. Now, this doesn't mean that President Trump is going to stop short of his goals. He already made that clear. Yes, President Trump said, we've already won a lot. We've destroyed Iran's missile launchers, heavily damaged their nuclear facilities, wrecked hundreds of IRGC bases, hit oil supplies that funnel directly to the IRGC. By the way, we should mention that. There have been a lot of bad reports about how the Israelis are going off the leash and hitting oil supplies, and the Trump administration is mad. Literally, the oil refineries they are hitting are specific oil refineries that fund the IRGC directly. If you think that the Israelis are not coordinating with the Americans on that, you're out of your mind. The United States so far has been highly successful. Here is Secretary of State Marco Rubio doing a spectacular job describing our goals.
The goals of this mission are clear, and it's important to continue to remind the American people of why it is that the greatest military in the history of the world is engaged in this operation. It is to destroy the ability of this regime to launch missiles, both by destroying their missiles and their launchers, destroy the factories that make these missiles, and destroy their Navy.
So here's the thing. America has already achieved most of these goals alongside our Israeli allies. But, there's always room for more winning. Here's the president.
But everybody said the same thing. Make sure you win. We will. We've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough.
We need more winning. More winning is demanded. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth this morning said that today will be yet again the most intense day of bombing.
Today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, the last 24 hours have seen Iran fire the lowest number of missiles they've been capable of firing yet.
Well, as the president says, no one else can do that bleep. Well, here's the thing. When it comes to your company, only you can do the bleep. But you need people who can help you do the bleep. And that is only going to happen if you have ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps you do the thing you need. Get skills-based hiring. ZipRecruiter will do that for you. Right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/DailyWire. You want people who can perform, who can solve problems, who can create, who can build, because that's what drives growth in a company like ours and also in yours. ZipRecruiter sorts through the tidal wave of applicants and figures out who actually has the skills you need. If you are an employer who's adopted skills-based hiring, the best way to ensure your applicants have the right skills is using ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter recommends smart screening questions to help you hone in on that perfect match for your role, so you're not wasting time on people who are totally wrong for the job. We've got people here who might like movies that others do not like. Producer Jake. And if you're on the bubble, ZipRecruiter might make it easier to find someone with better taste in movies. Plus, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology finds qualified candidates fast, and you can easily add those screening questions right to your job post so you get the highest quality applicants. If you want to view candidates who have recently been active on the site rather than, the old forgotten profiles, ZipRecruiter's filters can help you with that too. Let ZipRecruiter help you find amazing candidates with the skills you seek. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within day 1. Now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/DailyWire. That's ZipRecruiter.com/DailyWire. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Now, for 10 years plus here on this program, we've been talking about good Trump, bad Trump. But this is not bad Trump and it's not good Trump. This is unsurpassed awesomeness Trump. Here was President Trump yesterday saying nobody else could do this.
I don't want to brag, but, they've said this about a lot of things. No other president could do some of this I'm doing. No other president. The things I'm doing, nobody else was going to do it. They say it all the time. Sir, could you do this? You're the only one can do it.
Lie number 4, President Trump has no plan. So what's the strategy from here? Again, to hear the Panikins tell it, there is no strategy. I should mention here that all of the horseshoe right people who are saying that Trump was pressured into this, that somebody is pulling his strings, that somebody is behind the scenes forcing Trump to do this because they're cowards and they won't mention Trump's name. Yes, I'm talking about Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and all the rest who continue to pretend that Donald Trump didn't make the call and isn't making the calls because they are cowards with a capital C. I mean, listen to the president there. Does that sound like a man who is being manipulated behind the scenes or a dude who is in control? Alrighty, so what is the strategy from here? Again, to hear the so-called Panikins tell it, there is no strategy. Senator Mark Kelly, who somehow I think wants to run for president, despite his strange resemblance to Mr. Magoo. You have never seen them in the same place at the same time. He says he does not understand the strategy, which is more about him than it is about a lack of strategy.
We've got a math problem here. Regime change didn't happen. The son of the Ayatollah might be worse than the dad. We don't know yet, and I think only time is going to tell. The president said last summer we obliterated the nuclear weapons that they had and the uranium. That wasn't the case because now they're talking about ground operations to remove what's left. So I don't see from a strategic perspective what was accomplished.
This is ridiculous. I mean, that's super ridiculous. So because Moshtaba, Captain Failure to Launch over there, is now in charge with one leg and in a coma instead of his dad, or because the regime has not fallen yet, or because they've been deprived of the vast majority of their ballistic missile launchers, their drone-making and missile-making facilities, and their nuclear facilities, he doesn't understand? Well, that's weird, because the Iranian people understand it. So do the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Azeris, the Kurds, even the Qataris. And, of course, the Israelis understand it. But according to Mark Kelly and the Democrats, the strategy, to totally wreck Iran's military infrastructure and their governing infrastructure and force them into a state of collapse, it's impossible to understand. It's impossible. It's a riddle wrapped in an enigma. Chuck Schumer, the Senate minority leader, he is also bemused, bothered, and bewildered. He tweeted out yesterday, quote, about Trump. He can't articulate a plan or a vision because he has no plan or vision. He can't even decide whether or not the country is at war. He's risking the world economy and the lives of millions on whims and vibes. Well, Chuck Schumer is totally full of crap. Risking the lives of millions? Really? Of course, if Chuck Schumer believed that, he might, fund the Department of Homeland Security. You see, right now, Democrats in the Senate are holding up full funding of the Department of Homeland Security. This is why you might be sitting in an airport experiencing a flight delay while you listen to this right now. They're doing so because they're still mad at ICE for deporting illegal immigrants. But it turns out DHS is also responsible for things like the TSA and, say, protection from Iranian terror cells. It's now being reported that Iran may have activated its final gambit sleeper cells. According to the New York Post, quote, Iran sent out a possible operational trigger to activate sleeper assets abroad after the war with America and Israel began, according to an encrypted message intercepted by the U.S. The coded signal was sent out following the death of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei on February 28th, with the message appearing to hold instructions for covert operatives or sleeper assets, ABC News reported, citing a federal alert sent to law enforcement agencies. The U.S. warning said intelligence had detected a broadcast station repeatedly transmitting a message to multiple countries outside Iran, according to ABC, quote, while the exact contents of these transmissions cannot currently be determined, the sudden appearance of a new station with international rebroadcast characteristics warrants heightened situational awareness, according to the memo. So, with all that happening, now might be a good time to fund DHS, right? Wrong, because the only thing that matters to Democrats is hurting President Trump. The takeaway here, perhaps Democrats don't truly believe that America is at risk. If they do, they should probably fund the protection of Americans, but they won't. And then there's the horseshoe right, which can't stop, won't stop.
And what people like Levin, whom I'm not attacking, I feel sorry for because he's clearly living in hell, but what they're trying to do is a species of witchcraft. And it's really simple. You repeat something until it becomes true. Khomeini must die. We're going into war. We're going to knock off the government. This is good for us. Anyone who's against it is an anti-Semite, a Nazi, should be expelled. Benedict Arnold, not allowed in the White House. You keep repeating things that are untrue until they become true. You speak, you create truth by speaking. In the beginning was the word, right? There's a holy power, there's a supernatural power in words. Describing things is different from simply doing them. And if you can talk reality into being. This is what an incantation is. It's what a spell is. It's not like spooky, like crazy stuff. It's the lived reality of every person. Say it and it becomes true. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. But there's something deeper. There's like almost a spell. I mean, Huckabee, for example. You really think Huckabee is being threatened? I know Huckabee well. I'm sure you do too. Yes. Nice man. Like, what is this? And I look at him and I see a man under a spell. I mean this, and I'll be mocked for it, but I mean it. There's no practical, conventional explanation for some of this behavior. I mean, I look at Ted Cruz and I'm like, I think I know what's going on. Lindsey Graham, I think I know what's going on. But Mike Huckabee, I think he is under a spell. He is not thinking clearly at all.
A spell. Like a spell. Okay. It's Mark Levin's witchcraft. That crazy witchcraft. My goodness. Megan, of course, you see nodding along over there. What? You thought you might have a pressing question or two on how Mark Levin's magic incantations work? You stop that censor. She's not the mother of the internet. By the way, somebody really needs to do a wellness check on Tucker. He's spinning out. Alp is a hell of a drug. Well, there's something else that Democrats and the horseshoe right have in common, it seems. Aside from their deep desire to watch America lose a war to Iran, a wellspring of optimism with regard to Islamism, radical Islam. As we discussed yesterday on the show, on Saturday, 2 American-born ISIS-associated terrorists tried to throw IEDs at an anti-Islam rally. They weren't hiding their motives. Here was the NYPD announcing those motives.
Qayyumi said in recorded post-arrest statements that he had watched ISIS propaganda on his phone and that his actions that day were partly inspired by ISIS. The complaint also details statements made by Amir Balat after his arrest. En route to the NYPD precinct, Balat made spontaneous statements without being questioned by NYPD officers that were captured on body-worn camera footage. He said, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action, as well as, if I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." And later, after waiving his rights, he requested paper and wrote a message declaring in part, "I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kuffar." Now, "die in your rage" is a commonly known ISIS slogan, and kuffar is an Arabic term that refers to non-believers.
Well, in case you missed it, Amir Balad, who's one of these ISIS-associated attempted terrorists, actually flashed an ISIS salute to photographers. That's what that finger in the air is from a dude who shares, I assume, hair with Jim Morrison. According to Foreign Affairs magazine, for followers of ISIS, a single raised index finger has become a sign of their cause. It is increasingly common in photographs of militants. Some have even gone so far as to call the symbol the jihadi equivalent of a gang sign. Well, you remember that the mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, he spent like 24 hours pretending that there was no radical Islam problem, and the big issue of the weekend was a white supremacist rally that drew 20 people, not the terrorists throwing IEDs at people. Well, yesterday, finally, he made a statement in which he acknowledged that radical Islam did something bad. Quote, "Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi have been charged with committing a heinous act of terrorism and proclaiming their allegiance to ISIS. They should be held fully accountable for their actions. We will continue to keep New Yorkers safe. We will not tolerate terrorism or violence in our city." Well, there is a ringing rebuke of radical Islam from our Islamist-supporting mayor of New York. You can feel safe now in your choices, New Yorkers. Well, New York City may have gone to sleep on radical jihadism, but you need your actual sleep, like in your regular life. Because if you're not sleeping well, everything else in your life gets worse. Productivity, health, even your decision-making, it will all take a hit. For years, like a lot of people, I was dealing with a mediocre mattress. I'd wake up stiff, overheated, and just toss and turn all night. Then we switched on over to a Helix mattress, and that changed. Helix has a sleep quiz that uses your preferred sleep position, firmness, and other factors to match you with the right mattress for you, which is a far more rational system than wandering around a showroom and just randomly lying on a couple of beds and then being like, "Oh, it's probably fine." And then you sleep on that thing for like 10 years. My Helix sleep mattress is incredibly comfortable. It keeps me cool at night. I've noticed deeper, more consistent sleep that makes it a lot easier to tackle my horrifically busy schedule. My Helix sleep mattress is made just for me. It is breathable but firm, which is what I need. Helix is an award-winning mattress brand reviewed by outlets like Forbes and Wired. They ship directly to your door in the U.S. with free shipping, a 120-night sleep trial, and a limited lifetime warranty, meaning you can test it risk-free and send it back if it's not right for you. I've met the founders of Helix. They're awesome people. They make truly great products. Right now, go to helixsleep.com/Ben for 27% off. That's helixsleep.com/Ben for 27% off. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know that we sent you. helixsleep.com/Ben. So, how did this Leopold and Loeb of Islamist terror join ISIS in the first place? According to Balat's attorney, they found each other almost randomly. It was kind of a meet cute, apparently.
I'm saying they're from different parts of Pennsylvania. They're in different age groups. They are not known to each other. They do not live together. They do not have family or school ties. There is no reason to believe they knew each other prior to this incident, and I don't know how well they knew each other at the time of this incident.
Well, true Islamist love cannot be denied. But here's what we do know about the terrorists. According to the New York Post, quote, alleged ISIS-loving wannabe terrorists Ibrahim Qayyumi, 19, and Amir Balat, 18, grew up with successful immigrant families in idyllic white picket fence suburban Pennsylvania before they tried to detonate IEDs near Gracie Mansion, the Post has learned. Kayumi's parents even own a gorgeous $2.25 million home in scenic Newton, symbolizing the family attaining the American dream after arriving from Afghanistan decades ago, records show. The Balad family lives about 12 miles away in a comfortable 3,200 square foot two-story house worth a respectable $653,000 in leafy Langhorne, Pennsylvania. His parents hailed from Turkey and became naturalized U.S. citizens in 2017, according to Fox News. Authorities said the pair, who allegedly pledged allegiance to ISIS after their arrests, appeared to have been radicalized online and plotted to detonate deadly homemade bombs at an anti-Muslim protest outside a Gracie Mansion on Saturday afternoon. Now, there are a lot of questions to be asked here, and not a lot of answers available. What did the parents believe? Where did they go to mosque? Under what circumstances did they immigrate? What sort of material were these people consuming online? Did anyone notice? But the real story here is even wilder. Nobody really seems to care much about this. In fact, this story, the two ISIS-inspired young people who were throwing IEDs at a rally outside Gracie Mansion, it's a totally inconvenient story. The national coverage of the attempted IE attack hasn't just been muted, it's been nearly non-existent. That's presumably because it's really inconvenient to liberal sensibilities. I think maybe the most darkly hilarious video of the incident was this one.
You don't live in New York. You're coming to New York to tell people who belongs in New York and who doesn't belong in New York. We were born and raised in New York, and we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
There's that lib on the loudspeaker saying everyone is welcome here in New York as the terrorist comes from behind hurling an IED. I mean, literally using the guy as like a human shield and jumping over his back while hurling the IED. Everyone is welcome here. Oh, no. Solid stuff. But that is the reality of modern America. Both the left and the horseshoe right have decided to look the other way at radical Islam. Now, some of that is old school liberal suicidal tolerance, but for a lot of people, there's something beyond that, a third worldism that finds sympathy with Islamist tendencies. Take, for example, Mahmoud Khalil. Khalil, you'll recall, is an import from Syria by way of Lebanon. This is the guy who was supposed to come to Columbia University to study international and public affairs, but instead ended up promoting jihadism via the Gaza Solidarity encampment, which ended with his deportation order. Well, now he's not only still in America, he's dining with the mayor of New York and his terror-supporting wife at Gracie Mansion. According to the New York Post, quote, Mayor Zohran Mamdani hosted controversial anti-Israel activist and accused Hamas sympathizer Mahmoud Khalil, his wife, and their young son for dinner at Gracie Mansion for the holy month of Ramadan. And Mamdani put up an Instagram post, quote, last night, as we marked the one-year anniversary of his detention, Rama and I were honored to welcome Mahmoud Noor and their son Dean to Gracie Mansion to break our fast together. Here is the beautiful picture of the wonderful dinner with a bunch of people who love terrorism. I mean, it looks like Bane taking over the city from Dark Knight Rises. Mamdani then waxed poetic about his pro-jihad friend, quote, for Mahmoud Khalil, this past year has been marked by profound hardship and by profound courage. A year ago, Mahmoud was walking home through our city after sharing an iftar with his wife Noor when he was detained by federal agents, flown to Louisiana, and then held in an ICE facility for months. In that time, he was forced to miss the birth of his first child. All of this for exercising his First Amendment rights and protesting the ongoing genocide in Palestine. And yet, even in the face of that cruelty, there has also been beauty. New Yorkers raising their voices in solidarity, a city refusing to look away. Folks, if you wonder why the West seems to be losing to radical Islam, well, it's because we're not just importing radical Muslims, we are electing them to high office. And then, of course, there are the liberals, like the normie liberals who support people like Mahmoud Khalil. Meet Mahmoud Khalil's lawyer. Her name is Amy Greer. Here she is talking about how she hates the Constitution and would love to work toward the abolition of the legal system.
In my first year of law school to be like, okay, criminal law comes from property law. The Constitution was built while human beings were property, right, in the United States. And so all of these conceptualizations were very present. As a public defender, I only made it, less than a year because I felt like my presence in the room made it constitutional to harm. Are we creating more harm by using our skills to defend folks who are being swept into this system intentionally, purposefully? Swept is probably even too mild of a word. Is there a chance to mitigate that harm in any way? Sometimes there is. And so while we work toward abolition, collectively, do we engage with the systems that exist now at all to do any kind of harm mitigation or not?
I mean, what do Mahmoud Khalil and his lawyer, his very white lawyer, have in common? Wanting to tear down the system. Do Islamists need even more friends? Well, they do have the legacy media. Here is CNN's coverage about the 2 New York City ISIS terrorists. Quote, 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would drastically change as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Zohran Mamdani's home. Okay. I mean, I'm going to need to analyze that one for just a second. So they could have had like a really, really nice day in New York, and then it got ruined because they got randomly arrested for throwing bombs. Great job, CNN. Can't believe you guys are having trouble in the rating. You see, Islamists can only succeed when they find a supportive infrastructure of people willing to soft pedal radical Islam. In America, they found an awful lot of friends, people who truly despise America and find common cause with Islamists who wish to destroy it. So we'll get to the horror show that is James Talarico and his faux Christianity in just one moment. First, we have not talked about our DailyWire lifetime membership in a while. Today, we are changing that because one of you is going to win mine. You see, one winner out there, one lucky winner will get all access for life, for the rest of your life. Every show we make, every investigation we release, every new feature we build in the future. Here's how you can make that happen. Download that free DailyWire Plus app on iOS or Android and tap follow right under this extraordinary face with these magnificent eyebrows. You know it. That's it. That's your entry. If you want the full details, head on over to dailywire.com/lifetime. Download the app, tap follow, get yourself entered today. Well, there are leftists who wish to rip down our systems and ally themselves with radical Islam. And then there are leftists who just wish to rip down Christianity from the inside. One of those voices is James Talarico. He's the Texas Democratic candidate for United States Senate. James Talarico defeated hilarious cartoon character Jasmine Crockett in the primaries. Now he's been deemed the great super duper white hope for Democrats to turn Texas blue again. They seem particularly excited that he cites the Bible while pushing far left social policies. This is not because Democrats love the Bible. It's because they largely do not like the Bible and would prefer that it be corrupted from the inside. That's why the media love Talarico. That's the only takeaway I have for Talarico's brand of Christianity, which seems directly opposed to biblical thinking, traditional biblical thinking on every single score.
It's been said before that when fascism comes to America, it'll be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross.
Well, that sounds like somebody who's very, very interested in Christianity and the values of Christianity. You know, he does have some Christian values. Like, for example, he's very, very upset about carbon emissions, as Jesus spoke about repeatedly in the book of, and also in the book of, here we go.
You can't call yourself a Christian and destroy God's creation with greenhouse gases.
Wow. But, you know, there are things that he does stand against, James Talarico, really, really important things. So, for example, you know what Jesus would have hated? The 10 Commandments being in classrooms. That's what he would have hated. The Bible really hates when people post sections of the Bible in places where people can see them. If there's one thing that is very clear from the words of the Bible, it is that God hates it when people spread the words of the Bible, particularly to children. God despises it. At least that's what James Talarico is telling people. And Democrats are lapping this crap up, really lapping it up, because he looks like a refugee from a bad Sunday school program. Here he is.
This bill is not doing anything to love God or love neighbor. And in fact, it's discriminating against our neighbors, our Hindu neighbors, our Buddhist neighbors, our Sikh neighbors, our atheist neighbors. So this bill is doing violence to both faith traditions that it claims to represent.
It's true. It is doing violence to the biblical tradition to post the words of the Bible, like the 10 Commandments, on the wall of a school. And also, I'm unaware, by the way, that it is an act of violence to put up the 10 Commandments in a place where, say, Hindus can see it. Okay, let me just express this. Okay, I know, this is a big secret. I'm Jewish. Okay, and when I went to public school when I was a kid, we full on had Christmas activities in public school in Burbank, California. My sister, famously in our family, played the elf in the Christmas play at our local public school. Were we insulted? Were we disturbed? Were we suddenly broken down as human beings because of all of this? Was this Christian nationalism at work? According to James Talarico, yes. And of course, there he was sitting with James Carville, among others. Again, I just don't know. Did he go to it feels like he is just a trans radical masquerading as a young Republican from 1982. Here is James Talarico talking about how there are a lot of atheists who are more Christ-like than Christians in Texas.
I have met so many Hindus, Buddhists, Sikh, Jews, Muslims, atheists, agnostics who are more Christ-like than some of the Christians I serve with in the Texas legislature. It is about how you treat other people.
I mean, again, I can name all sorts of religious people who I think act poorly, but that does not mean that somehow Christianity is to blame or that a brand of Christianity that is significantly more traditional than your own. And what he's doing right now, we'll get to in a second, is in fact religious heresy. But here was James Talarico talking about abortion. Again, remember, according to James Talarico, the biggest thing about Christianity is it says that we shouldn't have carbon emissions, but also Jesus had nothing to say about abortion. The Bible has nothing to say about abortion. Killing unborn kids, no biggie.
95% do not believe that an embryo is a legal person. Now, the embryo is biologically alive. That is certainly true. But being alive and being a person are two different things.
Well, I mean, being a human being, which is what you are talking about here, a human being with potential. That's what we're talking about. But again, I love that his entire shtick is just saying the most left-wing possible things, but then blaming Jesus for it. It's incredible. This is why leftists love it, by the way. Here he was talking. He was asked on a podcast what he loves, what are things that he loves, and his answer was trans children, which, oh, goodness gracious me. I'm sure this is going to go over well in Texas.
Something that you love that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children who showed up yesterday at the state capitol to advocate for their humanity. They shouldn't have to, but it was an inspiration to watch.
Look at this deep devotee of biblical principles, like in the book of Genesis, where it says male and female, he created them. So here's that howdy-doody looking weirdo who loves trans kids, but isn't that hot on unborn kids, apparently, saying all of this in the name of Christianity. Well, this is not going to play in Texas. I'm just going to put it out there, not going to play in Texas. Maybe they would have been better off with Jasmine Crockett, who, again, is an entertaining cartoon character. But it is playing among precisely the crowd you would imagine, New York Times columnists, David French, who is or was a conservative Christian, and he's a person who I've considered a friend. He wrote a truly awful piece about Talarico for the Times this week. David calls Talarico, quote, one of the most faith-forward politicians in the United States, saying he doesn't, quote, just root his policies and ideology in his Christian beliefs. He's a seminarian, willing to dive deep into theology. Now, French acknowledges that Talarico's politics are far left, but, says David, Talarico is giving people hope. Hope. What's the hope? Well, according to David French, Talarico is one of the few openly Christian politicians in the United States who acts like a Christian. And by acting like a Christian, he reveals a profound contrast with so many members of the MAGA Christian movement that's dominated American political life for 10 years. It does really matter, says David, whether a politician is pro-life or pro-choice, but there is no spiritual or political scenario where you can abandon Christian virtue for the sake of the alleged greater good. And if a Christian politician abandons Christian virtue, then Christian believers should abandon him or her. So this is pretty silly. It's just silly. Christians who support President Trump are doing so because his policies most mirror their own. They're not doing it because they think that President Trump's sexual history is somehow praiseworthy or that Trump acts like, one of the guys they go to church with. Trump doesn't even talk about himself that way. But what David French is doing right now is boiling Christianity down to being nice, to manners. He's pretending that manners ought to overcome Talarico's blatant violation of the third commandment. That's the commandment that says, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain, which you might know if it were posted on like a Texas school classroom wall. It's one thing to take political positions contrary to scripture. A lot of people do that all the time. It's another to claim that you are actually speaking in God's name when you do that thing. That right there is a grave sin. And most Christians know that, which is why James Talarico, and it is amusing to me how every so often there will be a figure who arises in the left-wing community who quotes the New Testament, but only a few sections of Matthew, really. And then the entire left wing says, here is our culture warrior, here, right here, here's our Christian. Our Christian is Pete Buttigieg. And we're all like, what the F? Really? Like, that's him? Like the one who's saying that Jesus was super good with the gay marriage? Like that one? And like abortion on demand? That's who you're picking? See, Democrats, they still would love to have the appearance of the presence of blue dog Democrats in their coalition. But all the blue dogs are dead. They took them out and shot them out back like Kristi Noem. And that means that they are now left with people who cosplay as Christians and give the sort of nice mannered appearance of Christians while speaking actual heretical ideas in the name of the Bible. Well, speaking of Christians who do live out their actual faith, props here to Luke Cornett. He's center for the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA. He spoke out earlier this week about an Atlanta Hawks promotional night for Magic City, which is a strip club. That's the thing that was happening. The Atlanta Hawks decided that they wanted to have a night honoring Magic City, a strip club. So Cornett went on Substack. He said, this week, the Atlanta Hawks announced a special one-night collaboration to celebrate the city's iconic cultural institution, Magic City, during the team's home game against Orlando on Monday, March 16th. In its press release, the Hawks failed to acknowledge that this place is, as the business itself boasts, Atlanta's premier strip club. Cornett says, given this fact, I would like to respectfully ask that the Atlanta Hawks cancel this promotional night with Magic City. The NBA should desire to protect and esteem women, many of whom work diligently every day to make this the best basketball league in the world. We should promote an atmosphere that is protective and respectful of the daughters, wives, sisters, mothers, and partners we know and love. We desire to provide an environment where fans of all ages can safely come and enjoy the game of basketball and where we can celebrate the history and culture of communities in good conscience. The celebration of a strip club, says Cornett, is not conduct aligned with that vision. I mean, good for him. Good for him. And by the way, it actually worked. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had the Hawks cancel the night, explaining, quote, when we became aware of the Atlanta Hawks' scheduled promotion, we reached out to Hawks leadership to better understand their plans and rationale. While we appreciate the team's perspective and their desire to move forward, we have heard significant concerns from a broad array of league stakeholders, including fans, partners, and employees. I believe canceling this promotion is the right decision for the broader NBA community. That is the right move. Now, if only the NBA would stop training its cheerleaders to dance like they're moonlighting during their Magic City off hours. Well, meanwhile, the rest of the globe continues to spin. Thanks to the capture of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro by the Trump administration, Venezuela's oil flow to Cuba has stopped dead. And that means that Cuba is now in serious economic trouble. Protests are breaking out there regularly. Here's some of the video of the protests breaking out in Cuba. And this regime is in serious trouble. They are. They have no money. They're cut off from everyone. They have no oil revenues. And the people are tired of this. Truly tired of this. The freeing of Cuba, after decades, would be a signal achievement by President Trump, who is, at this point, single-handedly changing the geopolitics of planet Earth. And he is the most impactful president since Ronald Reagan in this respect, by far. President Trump yesterday said the United States might actually liberate Cuba. He said, listen, I think they'll liberate themselves, but maybe we'll help.
And it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis.
He, of course, is exactly right. Well, this would give Marco Rubio yet another job, El Presidente of Cuba, which, he's wearing a lot of hats right now, like a lot of hats. Alrighty, folks. Coming up, we're going to jump into the mailbag. Now, remember, you can only interact with me this way. Become best friends and hang out, and we can go back and forth. You can ask your questions and everything. If you become a member, head on over there. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us. Legal sent this list of everything we're not allowed to do in Season 2. We're going to do all of it.
We've got games, more celebrity guests, and yes, the mailbag is somehow worse.
If you thought Season 1 was extra, Season 2, we're doubling down.
We're not supposed to be doing this.
Exactly. Ben After Dark Season 2, streaming on DailyWire Plus.